Well, friends, news just broke that Donald Trump intends to sue the Department of Justice for malicious prosecution. And in some more breaking news, I intend to win the gold medal in the 100-meter dash at the 2028 LA Olympics. That was me running fast. Don't worry, we'll edit all that out. Let's talk about Donald Trump's latest nonsense. Because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, with Donald Trump, it's enter grifting, leave grifting, and grift all the while in between, and here he goes again. He has just announced that he's going to sue the Department of Justice for maliciously prosecuting him in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents, obstruction of justice, espionage case. Let's start with the new reporting, and then let's talk about what is obviously really going on here. This from NBC News. Headline, Trump plans to sue Justice Department over Mar-a-Lago search and prosecution. And that article begins, an attorney for former President Donald Trump has filed a legal notice announcing that his client plans to sue the Justice Department and the FBI for $115 million for alleged malicious political prosecution and abuse of process. The notice, a copy of which NBC News obtained Monday, baselessly accuses DOJ leadership and special counsel Jack Smith of having perpetrated a malicious political prosecution aimed at affecting an electoral outcome to prevent President Trump from being reelected, a frequent accusation that Trump makes online and during campaign events. Quote, this malicious prosecution led President Trump to spend tens of millions of dollars defending the case and his reputation, Trump attorney Daniel Z. Epstein wrote in a notice of claim against the department. Epstein is a former Trump White House lawyer who is now vice president of America First Legal, the legal group founded by former Trump advisor Stephen Miller. The filing complains that the FBI's court-approved search for classified documents at Trump's Florida estate in August of 2022 was improper, as was Trump's subsequent indictment for the scores of sensitive classified documents that agents turned up during the search. Trump had pleaded not guilty. The filing, which was first reported by Fox News, said the search violated well-established protocol involving former presidents and cites, and here it is, friends, the rock-solid evidence, the irrefutable proof Donald Trump and his lawyers are prepared to offer in support of their lawsuit against the Department of Justice. Here comes the evidence. They cite a Trump social media post after the search saying the government could have had the records anytime they wanted. All they had to do was ask, the Truth Social post said. That is the rock-solid evidence they're offering in support of this lawsuit, that this was a malicious prosecution. I mean, how can DOJ get around that? Donald Trump posted, well, they could have had the documents anytime they wanted. All they had to do was ask. Well, case closed. I guess DOJ owes Donald Trump $1 bazillion. That was all my editorial comment. The article continues. The filing does not mention the multiple requests from the National Archives and the Justice Department for Trump to return the records. The DOJ had also issued a subpoena for the return of such documents in May of 2022, and an attorney for Trump signed a declaration stating the classified documents, had all been returned that June. The search warrant was executed after investigators got information that they had been misled. They had been lied to by Trump and his lawyers, swearing in an affidavit all classified documents had been returned when in fact hundreds were still being unlawfully retained, hidden away, moved from boardroom to ballroom to bathroom in Trump's desperate attempt to hide them. But Donald Trump cites as his rock-solid proof that he tweeted, "All they had to do was ask and I would have given them over." Okay, friends, let's quickly knock down Donald Trump's nonsense by the numbers, 1 through 5. 1, can you sue the federal government? Can you sue the Department of Justice? The answer is yes, but it's really hard. Why is it really hard? Well, because the federal government, federal agents, federal employees, federal officers have a healthy dose of what's called sovereign immunity. It's a fancy term, but essentially what it means is if federal government employees, officers, agents, former federal prosecutors, for example, are doing their work day in and day out, and it's work that they are authorized to do, it is within the scope of their official duties, then they can't be prosecuted because some people are displeased with the decisions they made or the work they have done. I've always said, friends, as a career federal prosecutor, every time I made a prosecutorial decision, I was probably going to make somebody unhappy. If I decided to pursue an indictment, a prosecution, I would make the defendant unhappy, the defendant's loyalists, maybe if it was a gang case, the defendant's criminal associates, the defendant's family members, maybe the defendant's community. If I declined to bring a charge, I might make the victim unhappy, the victim's family, the victim's community. So I was likely to make somebody unhappy, regardless of what prosecutorial decision I made. However, I couldn't be sued by the defendant or the defendant's family, the victim or the victim's family, if I was acting within the scope of my duties as a federal prosecutor. Think about it. If people could bring lawsuits against federal government employees for every decision they make, every act they undertook because somebody was unhappy about it, well then federal government employees and officers would spend all day, every day in court defending themselves against lawsuits. So that's why the federal government has a healthy dose of sovereign immunity, immunity against such lawsuits being brought. Now, 2, you can sue the government. You can sue the Department of Justice, but if you do, it's governed by a law called the Federal Tort Claims Act. It's a federal law that's been on the books since, I think, 1946. And your first question might be, okay, what the hell is a tort? Fair question. A tort is a fancy word for when one person wrongfully injures another. The injury can be physical, it can be financial. Think breach of contract. 2 people enter into a contract. One person wrongfully violates or breaches the contract. That could give rise to civil liability, right? So a tort is just when one person wrongfully injures the person or financial interests of another person, and it could give rise to a lawsuit and financial liability. That's what a tort is. So the Federal Tort Claims Act says if you want to sue the federal government, you first have to give notice of your intent to bring the suit. And that's what Donald Trump just did. I'm suing the federal government for maliciously prosecuting me. But here's the thing, friends. Under the Federal Tort Claims Act, the federal government has 6 months to even respond, to decide whether they want to waive their own sovereign immunity because they think they really did something wrong and they want to enable the person to sue the federal government. They ain't going to waive their own sovereign immunity because they've done nothing wrong, but they have 6 months to make that decision. And the presidential election is less than 3 months away, which brings us to point number 3. This is a BS PR move by Donald Trump. Do you really think this lawsuit is going to move forward in the next 3 months? Of course not. This is so Donald Trump can stand up at his hate rallies and say, I'm suing the federal government, the Department of Justice, for maliciously prosecuting me in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. So please send me your hard-earned dollars, whatever money you might have left in your pocket that you haven't sent me already. Because remember, Donald Trump enters grifting, leaves grifting, and grifts in between from start to finish. That's obviously what this is about. 4, the government won't waive sovereign immunity and allow itself to be sued. But if it did, Donald Trump would lose that suit hands down. Why? Well, the Mar-a-Lago prosecution commenced when Donald Trump steadfastly refused over and over and over again to return the classified documents he obviously was unlawfully retaining at Mar-a-Lago. The National Archives asked him repeatedly. The FBI, the DOJ asked him repeatedly. There was a grand jury subpoena, which is the equivalent of a court order requiring him to turn over the classified documents, and he violated it. Indeed, he had one of his lawyers certify that no, Donald Trump has turned over all classified documents. That was a lie. He still had 100 plus that he was unlawfully retaining. All of that evidence I've just described was put in an affidavit. That's a sworn statement, sworn to by an FBI office agent under the penalties of perjury, presented to a federal judge, and the federal judge said, absolutely, there's enough evidence that a crime was committed and that evidence of that crime is located at Donald Trump's home, Mar-a-Lago, and I am authorizing the search. So there was nothing unlawful about the search. The search produced buku evidence. It's a legal term, buku. Lots of evidence that Donald Trump had been unlawfully retaining classified documents, had committed crimes, and that was the basis in part of the indictment. The indictment was not lawless. The prosecution was not malicious. So even if this case ever was actually brought by Donald Trump and litigated, Donald Trump would lose running away. Which brings us to the 5th and final point. Some people have appropriately asked, well, wait a minute, will the fact that Judge Cannon, Aileen Cannon, dismissed this case give Donald Trump any ammunition to claim that the prosecution really was malicious and unlawful and unconstitutional? The answer is no. The reason the answer is no is because Judge Aileen Cannon, first of all, was wrong on the facts and the law. Every other judge that has ever had to decide the legal issue of whether special counsel is a thing, is lawful, is constitutional, it is something we have been doing in our criminal justice system in one form or another since the 1800s, independent counsel, special prosecutor. Every other judge and every other court has ruled, of course it is lawful. Judge Cannon said, not to me. And she did an enormous, I would argue, lawless favor for Donald Trump yet again. So the fact that she said, I don't think special counsel is a thing, so I'm dismissing the case, doesn't convert the prosecution into a malicious prosecution, because the prosecution is based on the evidence, not on the appointment of special counsel. So even if this case ever went to trial, and it wouldn't, this case, meaning this legal suit against the Department of Justice that Donald Trump is threatening, if it ever were to be litigated, Donald Trump would just lose badly. So friends, this has all the earmarks of just another Donald Trump grift, another PR stunt so it will give him something to say at his rallies. You know, I'm suing the Department of Justice for prosecuting me. And to people who operate in a fact-free world, Donald Trump's base, his supporters, at least many of them, you know, maybe when Donald Trump says, I'm suing DOJ, they will hear that as, oh, he must have evidence. He must have a strong case against the Department of Justice, and that's why he's suing them, and that's why he will be successful in that suit. You know, if you act in a fact-free environment, maybe that's the conclusion you reach, and maybe you even let Donald Trump victimize you yet again by sending him your hard-earned money. You know, I think it qualifies as irony that the people who are victimized the most by Donald Trump are not the Democrats, are not the people who see through his every lie, his every ruse, his every grift, but the people who don't see through it or won't see through it because they empty their pockets. You know, and frankly, these may, in many instances, be folks who could use that extra $5 or $10 or $100 rather than, you know, stuffing that money into the pocket of a career conman who laughs at his own supporters, his own base. You know, and hopefully when Donald Trump is in the rearview mirror, and hopefully we see him in a prison cell held accountable for the crimes he's committed against the people of the United States, hopefully the lives of his supporters, his base, will become a little bit better as well, because we want that for everybody, left, right, and center. And because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.